World War II, the deadliest war in all of human history. This 6-year-long war left a devastating impact on the world that will last for centuries to come. But as devastating as the conflict was, there are some more little-known facts about the war that might shock you. Hello everyone, welcome to Top 10 History, your hub for historical lists and amazing history facts. Today we're going to look at 10 shocking facts about World War II. Make sure to watch until number 1 because the number 1 fact that we chose about the deadliest war in human history might shock you. Before we begin, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe to the channel with notifications on because we release a new historical top 10 list every single day. Also, make sure to smash that like button. Alright, let's get right into the video. The Germans almost discovered nuclear weapons. During the Second World War is when the world entered the atomic age. Following the testing of the first atomic bomb by the United States, then its use on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world would soon enter an extremely uncomfortable period known as the Cold War, which one could argue is still ongoing. However, the United States was not the only country that was working to develop weapons of mass destruction during the Second World War. Nazi Germany, surprisingly, was actually extremely close to developing plutonium, which is a highly explosive element that is used in some nuclear weapons. After Germany invaded Norway, they gained control of a factory in the Telemark region, which produced one of the key ingredients for developing plutonium. However, knowing the global catastrophe that this would lead to, the Norwegians infiltrated and blew up the factory before the Germans could use it. If they hadn't, it might be possible that Nazi Germany could have developed nuclear weapons before their ultimate defeat, which would have dramatically affected the outcome of the war and the rest of world history. Number 9. The Japanese Death Ray. Speaking of the development of weapons of mass destruction, here's another crazy story, but we'll be moving to the Pacific theater of the war. The Empire of Japan was looking to make revolutionary weapons of their own. The Japanese government paid 1 million yen to a group of scientists who could develop a long-distance weapon that could annihilate a target from several miles away. The scientists, who were inspired by the discoveries of Nikola Tesla, constructed a death ray that would fire electromagnetic radiation at a target that was standing several miles away. A prototype of the death ray was actually made and tested. It was proven to have lethal effects on a human target, even if they were standing several miles away. However, the flaw of the prototype was that the target had to be standing still for as long as 10 minutes in order for the death ray to have a lethal effect, making the device almost unusable in actual warfare. Number 8. The deadliest battle in history. This fact might not come as a surprise to those that know their history, but it is such a shocking and devastating fact that we could simply not leave it off this list. I'm talking, of course, of the Battle of Stalingrad, the deadliest battle in human history to this date. This battle lasted for 7 whole months, and in fact, more Russian soldiers died in this one battle than the amount of US and British soldiers died in the entirety of the Second World War. This battle was the climax of Hitler's attempted invasion of the Soviet Union and served as a major turning point in the war, as most of the German army would be wiped out in Stalingrad and other major battles in Operation Barbarossa. The German and Italian armies would lose as many as 868,000 soldiers in the Battle of Stalingrad, while the Soviet Union would lose more than 1.1 million soldiers, the biggest loss of life in any battle in world history. Number 7. The tallest and shortest soldiers. Now this fact is a little more lighthearted and sillier than the previous 3. At the end of the Second World War, the Germans ultimately surrendered to the Allies. Among the German army, there is one soldier by the name of Jacob Nacken who towered over them all. Standing at 7 foot 6 inches, he was by far the tallest soldier in the German army. However, he was forced to surrender to a man that was over 2 feet shorter in height than he was. Jacob Nacken ultimately surrendered to a British corporal by the name of Bob Roberts, who only stood at 5 foot 3 inches, a relatively short height for a man at the time. For this fact to make this list, other British soldiers at the time must have found this interaction comical, as it was documented and still remembered to this day. It wasn't the first time in history where the British used the enemy's height in their propaganda, as they famously mocked Napoleon for his height. One battle lasted the entire war. The Second World War was one of the most grueling and painful 6 years in world history, beginning in September of 1939 with the German invasion of Poland and ending in August of 1945 with the dropping of the atomic bombs on Japan. However, there was one battle that started right when the war started in September of 1939 and ended in May of 1945, almost the entire length of the war. I'm talking about the Battle of the Atlantic. The Battle of the Atlantic consisted of the German disruption of British supplies in the Atlantic Ocean, where cargo ships, merchant ships, and sometimes warships were sunk by German U-boats in order to cut off essential supplies from reaching the United Kingdom. And not just British ships were targeted, American ships were also targeted by the U-boats even before the United States officially entered the war in Europe. If any ships were delivering supplies to the British Isles, they were a target for the deadly U-boats. Number 5. Soviet men in 1923. Going back to facts that are dark, shocking, and grim, this particular one might especially shock you. When Hitler invaded the Soviet Union during Operation Barbarossa, the Soviet Union needed every able-bodied man to help fight off the Nazis and protect the motherland. And when we said every man, we really meant it. When examining the demographics and casualties of Soviet men who served in the war, a shocking discovery was discovered. Soviet men who were born in 1923 would have been 18 years old at the time that Hitler launched his invasion of the Soviet Union. Of all the men in the Soviet Union who were born in 1923, 80% of them would die during the war. As we talked about when we talked about the Battle of Stalingrad, the fighting on the German and Soviet front was some of the deadliest and most devastating fighting the world has ever seen. The US Army wore the swastika. Would it surprise you to learn that before the infamous Nazis would adopt the swastika as their official symbol, there was a division of the US Army that once wore it? Before the swastika adopted its dark and extremely racist meaning that we associate with it today, the symbol was used to represent several other things in different cultures. For example, the swastika was used in Buddhism as a symbol of footprints of the Buddha. While another culture that used the swastika was a Native American tribe that was located in the American Southwest. The 45th Infantry Division, whose members contained American soldiers from the same part of the country, mainly Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Oklahoma, wore the swastika as their official insignia for the division. However, when the Nazis rose to power in Germany and the swastika became a symbol of hatred, evil, and racist ideologies, the American division changed the design and replaced the symbol with a thunderbird in 1939. Number 3. The highest ranking military death. During the Second World War, there were countless casualties. Tens of millions of people across the world lost their lives as a result of the war. However, of these tens of millions of deaths, some were quite notable, one of which was the highest ranking American to ever die in combat, and how he died might shock you. Lieutenant General Leslie McNair, an American 3-star general, went down in history as the highest ranked member of the US Armed Forces to die in combat. However, he wasn't killed by a German or a Japanese soldier, but he was killed by friendly fire. Lieutenant General McNair was taking part of the mission to disguise landing sites for the invasion of Normandy and was mistakenly killed by one of the Allies during this operation. It probably was not a very good day for the soldiers responsible for accidentally killing a 3-star general on your own side. McNair was posthumously promoted to the rank of general, so technically that would make him the only US general to die in combat. Number 2. Queen Elizabeth served in the war. That's right, the current reigning monarch of the United Kingdom also served in the Second World War. Born in 1926, Queen Elizabeth turned 18 in 1944 at the tail end of the Second World War. The princess at the time decided that she wanted to serve alongside the common men of her country and serve as a driver and mechanic during the war, serving with the Auxiliary Territorial Service. Although her father, King George VI, thought it would be best for her to learn how to perform her royal duties, the Queen thought it would be more important to serve her country in another way and assist in the war. It is a little known fact that Queen Elizabeth that we know today is technically a World War II veteran. Number 1. A 12-year-old served in the US Navy. Normally, you need to be at least 18 years old if you want to serve in the US Armed Forces, but during the Second World War, there was a 12-year-old boy named Calvin Graham from Crockett, Texas, who was able to enlist in the US Navy. So how was he able to do this? Well, just simple lying and deception. He forged his mother's signature so that he could enlist underage, he wore his older brother's clothing to make him look older, and he spoke in a deeper voice to make him sound older than he actually was. While in the Navy, he actually deployed overseas on the South Dakota battleship. The boy's mother spotted him on TV and reported him to the military that his enlistment was fraudulent, as he was only 12 years old. He was dishonorably discharged from the Navy, however, he was regarded as a legend and a war hero in his hometown of Crockett, Texas. Did these facts shock you? Make sure that you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss out on more historical facts and much more. If you like this video, check out this next video on the 10 historical misconceptions throughout history. Alright, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.